Hey, after the last video, I got some email about it. And by some, I mean I got 3 email. But one stood out, and I'm going to share it to here. Um, Email said, Bro, instead of drawing out everything you know about podcasting, can you do a lightning round episode of everything you know? No movie clips, even though I like them, or quick edits. Just mow them all down. Well, I don't really like being called bro, but I accept your challenge and will drain my brain right now like John Machida. So let's get to it.
Okay, Eunice, travel plans. I need to be in New York on Monday, LA on Tuesday, New York on Wednesday, LA on Thursday, New York on Friday. Got it?
Got it.
Got it. So you want to work here. What really makes you think you deserve a job here?
Well, sir, I think on my feet I'm good at figures and have a sharp mind.
Excellent. Can you start on Monday?
Yes, sir, absolutely, without hesitation.
Congratulations. Welcome aboard.
Okay, that's the only video clip. Let's get started. Hey everybody, I'm Saul Colt, the host of the Licensed Print Money Show, powered by Spreadshop. The goal of the show, for as long as they let me do it, is to show creative people how to make money from their creative life. So have you subscribed yet? Our numbers are going up, so I hope you have. I hope you're telling your friends, smashing that bell, because every Tuesday and Friday we're going to cover ways to generate income from your creative life. Everything from growing audiences, nuances of each platform. Today we're doing a big dump on launching a podcast and, most importantly, the secret to selling merch. Speaking of merch, the show is sponsored by Spreadshop. I have had a Spreadshop for over a decade, and in my opinion, they're the very best online solution for selling all kinds of merch, like clothing, bags, and, the list goes on and on. They're absolutely free. They're amazing. I wear a Spreadshop shirt almost every day, and I love them. So that's my personal testimonial. Let's get to this podcast thing, and I'll do a better read at the end. Okay, here is everything I know about podcasting, and I'm going to tell it to you as fast as I can, lightning round style. So are you ready? Okay. Subscribe to all podcast industry and podcast recommendation newsletters out there. Your podcast is part of the very large and growing landscape of podcasts, and you need to know what is out there, and people need to know you're here. Don't worry about your voice. Many people think they don't have the right voice for a podcast. Many new podcasters consciously or unconsciously use a different voice, like those AM radio voices, hey everybody, it's 10 after the hour. Don't do that. Just be authentic. When you drop your first episodes, make sure you launch with multiple episodes, ideally 3. So when listeners find you, they can get hooked on your show right away. But it also boosts your total downloads. That sends, some positive signals to podcast platforms like Apple to show that you're worth paying attention to. And maybe they throw you some promotion. Organize your workflow. All the best podcasters have an established structure for each podcast, an established structure for how they produce an episode. Creating a podcast episode takes like 100 steps. You've got to outline, you've got to research, you've got to book guests, you've got to record, you've got to edit audio and video as well. You've got to make promo clips, uploading, promoting. The list goes on and on and on. And then there's the post-publication work, like sharing the episodes on social media and sharing podcast transcripts and show notes to your blog and blah, blah, blah. Decide on the steps for your specific workflow, which will make it as easy as possible to streamline your work. I use organizational tools like Monday, but there's a bunch out there that you could use. I track my episode ideas, the status of the shows, who is the guest, where are the notes, when are you recording, is it finished, is it posted, keep all the links handy, make sure you make it as easy as possible to devote time and energy to your podcast. Organizing your workflow will allow you to create a consistent production schedule and make a podcast you're really proud of. Think of all the repetitive tasks related to the production and marketing of your show. These will prove invaluable as your show grows and you begin to get help. Make a template for your editing. Is there boilerplate text for your show notes? If not, make them. It's really important that you make content that you genuinely like. stuff you relate to and are excited to share with other people. And that also goes into guests. Find guests you're really interested in. If you're doing an interview podcast, you want to book guests that you're actually excited to speak to. Don't book people simply because they've reached out to you or they have an impressive resume. If you're not interested in the guest, that will come through in the recording. The worst show I ever recorded was a guy who asked me to be on the show instead of the other way around, and I regretted it. I knew it was going to be awful 3 minutes into it. I always tell people, learn from the master podcasters and interviewers. Go listen to a handful of Mark Maron shows. He is an incredible interviewer. Go listen to Gilbert Gottfried's show and pay attention to how much research Frank Santopadre, his co-host, would do for every show. Notice how, great podcast hosts don't just listen. They don't just listen to speak. They listen to understand. Practice active listening to show your interest in what the guest has to say. Don't be afraid to let conversation veer from your list of questions. Let the conversation flow naturally. Ask follow-up questions as you think of them, and, just make good shows. Do your research. Learn as much as you can about your podcast guests before you interview them. Go to their website, read their About Me page, scroll their social media accounts, listen to previous interviews they've done. That way you can dig deeper than the surface level and get an engaging and unique discussion. Also, listening to previous interviews lets you come up with questions really easily that you wish people had asked that they never did get asked. Don't self-host your show. And I don't mean being the host as the interviewer. I mean like the distribution. We talked about use Lisbon or whatever the directory that you choose, and don't DIY it. It's such a hassle. Don't get caught up in comparison. Remember, everybody started where you are, so focus on the first steps you need to get your podcast from an idea to a recorded episode. Then take that recorded episode and get it to 5 recorded episodes and 10 recorded episodes. And again, this sort of rolls into this. Produce in batches. There's another efficient podcast recording tip is batch your recordings. Batch your recording podcasts can help save you time, get more done more efficiently, and avoid missing a scheduled release day. Simply plan out your next batch of episodes, then record and edit them in one sitting. Of course, if you talk about the news or current affairs, you can't record ahead of time. But if your content is evergreen, interviews, stuff like that, you can record multiple episodes at once. When done right, batch recording can mean creating content for an entire month in a single day. I never go as far as a month in a single day, but I do believe you should block off a whole day so you can record 2 great shows and edit one of them. Be authentic and own what you do. It's worth repeating this. I've said this probably in every show, but be yourself, be authentic, let people see you, all that stuff. Here's something I probably should have led with. My best podcasting tip is to get the best quality gear that you can afford without, going crazy and blowing your budget. It makes a huge difference. One of the keys to attracting an audience at some level is to learn how to be compelling on the microphone. This takes practice. But if you focus on your production quality, you can record. I say, you can record on your phone. I'm not a fan of it. I would never do it. But, use StreamYard, use Zoom, get good gear, record directly to your storage device, do things in person. It's really important. Good quality. Record video too, even if your audio is your end product. Podcasters are expected to produce rich visuals for other channels. If you start with capturing high quality video, audio and video, it's relatively easy to repurpose video clips of your podcast on YouTube, LinkedIn, TikTok, whoever. Always focus on prep because you build hosting skills over time. Prep is the key to a great conversation with a guest, and you can always outwork your competition, especially for interviews. And speaking of interviews, if you're interviewing someone, make sure you tell them where the mute button is, remind them to stay close to the mic, all those things. Don't assume people know it. Another thing to tell your guests is to please use an external microphone rather than the built-in microphone on their computer, on their iPad, whatever. It makes a huge difference. I know I said this already. I'm gonna say it again because I didn't make notes. It's in my head. Interview people who excite you, not just people you think your target audience will like. I said that already, but it's worth saying. If you just noticed a little edit, it's because I got into this crazy coughing fit. Let's get back to it. Create templates for your email communication with like your guest in a workflow, on a platform somewhere, Make staying on top of your podcast a priority. Include a call to action snippet, at least in the first 100 podcast episodes. Ask people to follow, rate your podcast, share, all that stuff. Hit the bell icon on Spotify. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts. You should also mention that you've included a link to your show notes, which explain, how to do this and stuff like that. One thing I always do is have your guests fill out a very thorough form a few weeks before recording. Not only does this weed out guests who might not be 100% committed, but it also gives them all the information they need at a later date when it comes to promotion. And it gives you all the stuff like their social media handles and contacts and stuff like that. Mic technique. Every microphone requires a different technique. So practice on your microphone. Figure out what the best distance is, the gains, all the other factors. Because again, it's all about quality. If you record interview-style podcast, be sure to create a pre-podcast checklist for your guests. Not only will this ensure that they're receiving everything they need to know where to show up, but also how to promote the appearance. It'll also make them feel better prepared to be on your show. Like, this guy knows what he's doing. I'm working with professionals. I'm a believer that you have your intro and outro speech, the welcome to thing, recorded by a pro. But if you want to do it yourself and you're going to do an intro read every episode, make sure you have it on a paper or a screen so you don't have to struggle to remember all the details. This is the 32nd video we've done, so I kind of know it all in my head now, but I always had a cheat sheet. Also, remember, ask your podcast guest to recommend somebody in their network to be a guest for another episode. They probably will recommend somebody really cool because they've been through the experience and know what it's like. I've found the best thing that works for me when it comes to editing is to create a routine. I do all the writing and research on Sundays, and I do recording, editing, and publishing of my podcast. Usually I block out 1 day or 2 days a month and work one full day on the podcast. When I'm recording, if I make a mistake, and I had a coughing fit here, but I usually never make a mistake. I'm a pro. What I will do is I will make a big hand clap. and when I'm editing, I know at the clap, I need to start over. I know where to edit and all that stuff. It's visual, it's thing. I'm not going to leave it in the show. Well, I'll leave that one in so you can see. Don't worry about the length of your podcast. Let it flow naturally. My episodes are between 30 minutes and 3 hours. If the guest is great and they're cool with giving you the time, let them talk. What's another one? I know. Go for progress rather than perfection. It's too easy to let imperfections keep you from actually completing the task, recording, editing. You can always make progress and get better over time. If you watch the first couple episodes of this show, we made it bad on purpose so we show growth, but still it's progress. Assume it's going to take you 4 times the length of your episode to edit it than it did to record it. You've got to remove some ums. You've got to remove background noise. You've got to equalize the volume of the 2 guests. You've got to add in distracting music and stuff like that. So it takes a while and prepare for it. Repurpose your content. Transcribe your episodes for accessibility. Use video snippets for social. Create blogs. Upload to YouTube. Maximize your distribution by reaching different audiences on different platforms. Make your guests sound great. Not only audio great, but make them sound loved, smart, experts. That's how you get the best out of guests, and that's how you get more guests. Don't afraid to be different. Everyone is doing endless interview shows, making audiograms and tweeting their link to podcast recommendations and stuff like that. Now is the time to stand out, do different things, and draw people in. And if you focus on having a great conversation and ask interesting questions, it becomes much easier to build out a variety of content from your core conversations. So always make sure that, you're making little notes during the conversation. This would be a good clip. This would be this. Or do it in editing. Give listeners every opportunity to support your podcast. Set up a donation method, where they can drop, a tip in the cup, and give them extra content, all sorts of things. There's a lot of different ways to do it, Patreon and a few different things, but make sure that you're thinking about monetizing from the very beginning. I like to write out in bullet points my process behind each part of what I do for the podcast. I don't do it anymore because it's there, but the guest booking process, the editing process, the marketing process, anything new that I'm trying that worked, I like to have it. So if I were to hand it off to somebody, they could do it quite easily. Don't judge yourself. We're in the last couple. Don't judge yourself by your downloads or compare your downloads to other people's. Judge your podcast on what you want to portray and how successfully you feel you've put across what you want to say. Okay, and finally, you saw me coughing. You heard me this. Stay hydrated. Drink at least 8 ounces of water before you record. I did not do that today. It'll settle your stomach. It'll loosen your mouth. It'll help your focus. It'll also reduce any mouth clicks, the natural clicking and popping noises, when your mouth is dry. I think it's better to drink more water and even, pause to use the bathroom if you want to, just edit the show around it, but drink water. So there's a lot, that goes into launching a podcast. I've shared everything I can think of. There's probably a couple things. I know. Don't forget to make some shirts with your podcast show logo on it and add it for sale in your Spreadshop store. What's Spreadshop? If you don't know by now, I hope this is the first time you're watching the show. But Spreadshop is the ultimate and free solution for creating and selling custom merchandise online. Spreadshop offers an extensive range of very high quality products, including t-shirts, hoodies, bags, all sorts of things. Simply upload your designs and Spreadshop takes care of all the heavy lifting. No need to worry about production, inventory, or fulfillment. Visit www.spreadshop.com today and tell them Saul sent you. That's it for today. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up. Give it 2 thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. We'll be back next week with more tips to fuel your creative success. But until then, if you like the show, tell a friend and go watch some of our back catalog.
Well, tell your friend we appreciate the recommendation.